Welcome. Wherever you come from as you join us for this service, whatever path has led you here today, however you understand yourself, if you come here today to join with others in a community of comfort and of challenge, you are welcome. As we start, I acknowledge that we come from many places across this land. Let us pause briefly to consider our respect for the land and for the people who have and who do reside here. I acknowledge the Indigenous people of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet on a virtual platform, I would like to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. Please join with me in a moment of reflection to acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and to consider how we can, in our own way, try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Today, I light this chalice, symbol of our faith. The open chalice holds fire, symbol of transformation, passion, and illumination. May our faith community help us engage with joyful passion in the work of better reflecting our values and doing what we can to bring lasting and positive change to the world.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of believing, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of believing, ours is no caravan, lover is 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 believing, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
We gather today bringing the joys and sorrows of our lives with us. Let us accept sorrow and great sadness, as well as the joys and triumphs of our life simply. Let us feel them for what they are, proof of our humanity. Let us breathe together, holding one another tenderly. May those who come here today with sorrow and with worries find a community that understands. One of the great gifts we can offer one another is to be a witness. May those who come with troubled hearts know that we are glad they are here, in spite of the challenges they face. May they know that we care and that we hold them with love. May they know that we hope their hearts and minds find peace. We celebrate today with those who come with glad hearts, with good news and good cheer. May they know we heartily join in celebrating with them, in sharing their gladness. May the happiness they feel today become a cherished memory. We know there is so much news in the world that is hard and so hard to hear. We know that there are no simple solutions and that we often feel powerless in the face of hard news. So let us breathe together again. May we have the courage and the grace to listen with curiosity to others, learning something of their heart and mind. May we be willing to love one another, even when we disagree. May we hold one another with affection. These are hard days, and we need one another. Let us breathe together again and again. We do not know what the future holds, but let us resolve today to be companions for the journey with each other. Blessed be, and amen.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Reemerging. You are a bear, awakening with the spring. There's a new smell on the wind. The air is still chilly, but there are currents of warmth, too. The sun is out. Other creatures are stirring. There's bird song, crocuses. You stir. You crawl forward to the mouth of the den. The sunlight is bright. You blink. Sniff the air. You stretch, feeling into the stiffness of your body after months of slumber. And you take stock of your surroundings. It is familiar, this good, safe place where you chose to wait out the winter. But it's different now. And what's more, you have changed too. My friends, we have been through a harsh winter. Literally, yes, there have been some of those, but I'm talking about a more metaphorical and yet equally as real winter. Winters, plural. Even before the pandemic, Unitarian Universalism was in decline. More slowly than other liberal Protestant traditions, but still we were losing numbers overall. We knew that sooner or later, we'd have to do something drastically different in order to continue offering a place of refuge and inspiration for seekers. And we were on the path towards figuring that out. And then March 2020 happened. Our hand was forced, and out of care for each other, we changed the shapes of our beloved communities. We let go of some precious traditions, and there was grief there, and there still is. And we also discovered that we were capable of a degree of accessibility and adaptability that for some reason felt out of reach before. Through it all, we remembered this essential truth about humanity and about our purpose as a community, that we need each other. And while the COVID-19 lockdown was the event that brought about the most significant, immediate, and collective change in how we do church, it was by far not the only apocalypse to rock our world in the last few years. Apocalypse means unveiling. Once the curtain is drawn back, it is impossible to proceed as if we didn't know what we now know. For example, the pandemic unveiled how intricately and inextricably connected we all are to each other. The murder of George Floyd peeled back yet another layer on how racism functions in North America, how policing and prisons are tools of white supremacist colonial violence. The confirmation of the existence of hundreds of unmarked graves of Indigenous children at residential school sites, made it impossible to deny the brutality of that system. The increasing frequency of extreme climate events is not letting us pretend any longer that climate change is a problem for some future generation to deal with. It's here. We are that generation. And now, war upon war. I'm going to stop there for now. I know you can add to the list. And for some people, for many people, these apocalypses did not begin with the events that I just named. What was already a reality for many marginalized people has become a shared reality, at least in awareness, if not impact. And as Unitarian Universalists who have covenanted to upholding the inherent worth and dignity of every person, who recognize our place in the interdependent web of all existence, and who are committed to dismantling barriers to full inclusion and full belonging in ourselves and our institutions, we have a responsibility to proceed as if all of these things are true and we know it. How will this change us? How have we already been changed? What does the world need from us now? This is the direction that we're going in this service. We're headed there. But first, let's land in the present. Let's go slowly. Like our teacher, the bear, blinking in the sunlight. You know, it strikes me that every blink is a moment of respite, of rest, of grace in the context of sudden change. Blinking, breathing, smelling the air, and checking in with our bodies. So my task, as the first of 3 reflections today, is to help us situate ourselves in the here and now. I've tried to do that by naming some of the things that we've been through collectively over the past few years, some of the ways that the veils are being lifted. And the other part of my charge is to take stock of who we are. So here goes. We are a religion, and yes, a religion, that values critical thinking, direct experience of the divine through a multitude of sources, and is ultimately optimistic. We believe love and belonging is for all of us. We believe that we have the ability and the responsibility to shape the world that we know is possible. We are the inheritors of a tradition that has reinvented itself over and over again as the world has changed around us. And we have added our influence to that spinning world. Unitarian Universalism knows something about evolving past outdated worldviews and structures, while holding on to the gifts from our ancestors that are life-giving. And I believe that above all, the deepest of these gifts is the knowledge in our very bones and our very souls that we need one another. It's why we still gather together on Sundays and other days, in body and in spirit and on screens, because we know that our bodies and our souls are fed by reciprocity. We come together to know that we are not alone, to challenge each other and comfort each other and celebrate with one another, to lift our voices together in praise and in protest and for the sake of love. This is a love letter to who we are now. I truly believe that church has so many of the medicines that our world desperately needs. And that's why I'm dedicating my life to the service of a movement that seems to be dying. Now, if it turns out that what's needed of me is to be a death doula, to help midwife our movement into rich compost for what's next, I will do so as faithfully as I am able. But I really hope it's not. Because we have so much more to give. Our world needs resilient, diverse communities of wise elders and wondering children and creative teenagers, generous adults. Communities who have practiced navigating hard times together, who understand that each person has something essential to offer. Our world needs all of us working together, grounded in love and grounded in interdependence. So as we blink our way into the brightness of this new reality, may we go forward knowing that we have what it takes here among us already.
Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
If you're going to reimagine, you've got to imagine. And if you're going to imagine, you've got to dream. And if you're going to dream, you've got to rest. And it's hard to rest while you're running. And it's easier to slow down when we are held. And it's easier to let yourself be held if you feel safe. And it's easier to feel safe if you feel love. And it's easier to find love if you aren't alone. And it's easier to gather together if love is at the center. When someone asks me what UUs believe, my new elevator speech is that we believe in holding love at the center of all things. Humming sings a lullaby to our soul that we feel with our whole body. It is one of many coherent breathing practices that slow our breathing and engage the vagus nerve, also called the soul nerve. The soul nerve activates our parasympathetic nervous system and helps us move from fight, flight, freeze, or fawn to rest and digest. When you can finally slow down, when you can at last let it out, when you truly let it go. We loosen, we put things down that we need to put down. Our heartbeat slows, our gaze softens. We sense melting, softening, warming. It is the wisdom of our body letting us know that we are safe, that we are held, that we can rest, that we can dream. The world doesn't have to stop for us to finally rest. We don't have to get resting just right. You don't have to stop wiggling or giggling. You don't have to rest forever. We do need to be willing to get started. We do need to hold space and time for each other, where our dreams can catch up to us, where we can deeply listen. Places where we can prepare to hold others in love by being willing to be held by love ourselves.
When the world is sick, can no one be well? But I dreamt we was all beautiful and strong. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
I have long been fascinated and enchanted by the world's mythologies, the sacred stories that are told in every culture. I'm fascinated by the variety and the unity in these narratives, particularly the stories that tell of the origins of the world, the origins of humanity, how it all began. As sacred stories, these narratives frame the nature of reality, of humanity. These are ways of telling about the place humans occupy in the interdependent web of existence, and often what we are and what we might be for. Sacred stories orient us to our purpose. What interests me with this genre of story is that there's always something there at the beginning. Usually water, that archetypal substance that speaks of chaos and disorder. The creating and creative protagonist at the center of the narrative dives deep and resurfaces with a clump of wet earth, or hovers over the face of the watery depths like a bird, conjuring forth the world through the spoken word. Or sometimes primordial humans fall out of the sky, landing in the water, or landing on the back of a water creature. Or the water is itself the goddess's body, giving birth to all that is. And so a world begins. Not out of nothing, but out of something. You may be familiar with some notions in the philosophy of religion, including creatio ex nihilo, that is, creation out of nothing. While adopted by the major monotheistic religions, creation out of nothing originates with Plato and Aristotle, and was explored and articulated by the ancient Greeks as an idea. Nothing comes from nothing was one response, ex nihilo nihil fit. So what difference does this make? On the one hand, there is chaos in the origin of existence. On the other, nothing, nothingness. If the gods create out of nothing, then all that is originates from the gods. If the gods create out of primordial chaos, then all that is originates in this original material, water and wet earth and sky. Humanity is embedded in and related to the stuff that makes up the world. This is an idea that appeals to me. In this imagining, I am part and participant in the cosmos, of the same substance and physically related to all that is. Appealing also is the thought of an artist at work rather than an unmoved mover or an uncaused cause. An artist works with material, clay and yarn, paint, cloth, stone, film, canvas, taking unrelated pieces of things and assembles, manipulates, stirs, grinds, mixes, until the material substance the artist began with is now a work of art. The material substance the artist began with is now shaped in the vision the artist had in mind before beginning. In this way of telling it, I have purpose, intent, a meaning. I can think of my life as purposeful, intentional, meaningful, even as I have to work at discovering or generating what that is. I've been thinking about this quite a bit recently. Origin stories, creativity, how things come into being. We are living in a time that demands, among other things, our creativity. We are living through an era that demands our imagination. In some very real ways, we are moving into uncharted waters. As individuals, as a nation, as faith communities. Many of the old signposts have been swept away. Much of what we might have counted on previously is gone. Before the COVID pandemic, faith communities were grappling with the diminished and diminishing place that religion occupies in Canadian society. We noted with growing alarm the decline in membership and participation in religious institutions all around. Programs for children and youth in local congregations dwindled. Theological schools scrambled to reinvent themselves. As enrollment declined, as fewer faith communities were viable or capable of hiring full-time clergy. In a mutually reinforcing downward spiral, leaders, families, individuals, communities have been abandoning the project of maintaining religious institutions. And then COVID hit. Many local congregations were able to pivot, augmenting their online presence. Others did not have the capacity. In the emerging post-COVID age, many congregations have not bounced back. People have not returned. It's even more difficult to find volunteers, committee members, people to sit on the board. What children and youth were around before the pandemic are now nowhere to be found. RE enrollment is down, attendance is down, giving is down, participation in outreach and social action is down. Many of us are experiencing fatigue and despair and doubt. If only things could be the way they were before. For those of us who care deeply, it feels like it's the end of the world. It feels like what we cherished and helped build and contributed to is ending, coming to its complete end. I actually don't believe that. It isn't the end of the world. In fact, it's the beginning of a world. We are at the beginning of something new. And in remembering stories of how worlds begin, being reminded, we are not creating out of nothing, so it's time to take stock. What have we got? Who's here? What can we use? What are our resources in this moment? It's not helpful to be thinking about who's not here and how there used to be a choir and a full RE program and we were at 80% seating capacity in our gathering space. Let that go. There is no going back to a previous era. We're never going back to the way things used to be. We can take the time to feel that loss, to honor those losses, to acknowledge what was lost, and then begin again. Begin again. Our creative task in this emerging world is to take what is at hand, to use what we do have. Our creativity in this new era is renewal rather than something completely new. What have we got? Some muddy water and a clump of wet earth? Okay, let's make something. The materials we have on hand may not look like much, but they are actually quite generative, regenerative. We have the basic historic testimonies of Unitarianism, Universalism, and UUism, a core of what we have stood for over the course of not only decades, but centuries. Our regeneration comes with a renewed commitment to our essential values. Remember what they are: covenant and community, openness and curiosity, truth and insight. Remember the basics of the religious attitude: reverence and awe, gratitude and generosity. Remember the keys of our theological distinctives: that we are born to original blessing, that no one is irredeemable, that there are better ways of being together in community, grounded in love, mutuality, compassion, solidarity. Remember and begin again. Remember who we are, what we stand for, what we have long stood for, and begin again. Using what we have and remembering our purpose, we begin. We begin to create. We move into whatever it is that is emerging around us and among us. Just as our religious movement has evolved over decades and centuries previous to our time, we are currently making an evolutionary leap in ours. What we have before us is not so much a matter of creating something brand new for a new era. What is ours to do in this moment is more a matter of assembling and using what we have for the emerging future. Looking with fresh eyes at our purpose, our vision of a world made better, our mission to make it so. We may need to reinvent how we do some things, how we reach people, how we sustain our local gathered communities, but these are still our vocation. We are being called upon to rethink how we help people live lives of meaning and significance, but that is still our mighty calling. It's not going to look the same. It will be familiar, hopefully, but not the same as it did before. How we make decisions and govern ourselves, how we raise money and make budgets, how and when we gather for worship, it will look different, but we'll still be at it. How we make music together, minister to children, youth, and families, express our values in the public square, it will look different, but we'll still be at it. How we offer tools for spiritual growth, create meaningful community, reach the needs of others. It will look different, but we will still be at it. So beginning something new that isn't completely new, nothing comes from nothing. We are called to a renewal in this historic moment. So let's get creative. Let's begin.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
All of us at the Canadian Unitarian Council are glad to spend this time with you today. Anytime we gather together, in whatever format, is an occasion for gratitude. There are multiple ways you could be attending this service. You may be live on the National Zoom, or enjoying the service in your local congregation, or you've found us on the CUC YouTube channel and you're watching at a later date. However you've come to be here, we are grateful for your time and your participation. We know that you have many calls for your energy and your attention, and we are excited to be together for this hour, to meet one another, to deepen our connections, and to spread the love, joy, and boundless potential of being in Unitarian Universalist community together. It is tradition in our congregations and at our national gatherings to dedicate an offering, either to support the effort of our UU organizations or a special collection for a charitable group doing good work in the community. Today, we ask that you make a gratitude donation to one or more of these communities of your heart, somewhere you believe a donation will make a difference and support positive change and service in the world. The Canadian Unitarian Council, who has provided this worship service, your local UU congregation or community, or you can make a contribution to another charity or organization. Thank you today and every day for your dedication and generosity and your presence in our movement. With the words of our speakers, we extinguish our chalice, and we carry their wisdom, their inspiration, and their charge in our hearts and minds. Reemerging, to be a bear awakening in the spring, taking stock of the surroundings, familiar yet different, awakening to a new time. To have the ability and the responsibility to shape the world that we know is possible, where love and belonging is for all of us. reimagining. If you're going to reimagine, you've got to imagine. And if you're going to imagine, you've got to dream. And if you're going to dream, you've got to rest. When the world is sick, can't no one be well? But I dreamt we was all beautiful and strong. Preparing to hold others in love by being willing to be held in love ourselves. Renewal. We are living in an era that demands our imagination. It isn't the end of the world, it's the beginning of the world. It's the beginning of something new. What have we got? Who's here? What can we use? What are our resources in this moment? Our regeneration comes with a renewed commitment to our essential values. Remember what they are: covenant and community, openness and curiosity, truth and insight, reverence and awe, gratitude and generosity. That we are born to original blessing, that no one is irredeemable, that there are better ways of being in community, grounded in love, mutuality, solidarity, and compassion. Remember and begin again. It'll look different, but we'll still be at it. Remember and begin again. Blessed be.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning.